Another week and another solo leveling episode done. Well, I have to say, a lot of interesting developments in episode 8 of season 2 here of solo leveling, and of course, we're gonna dive right in and discuss, well, all of them. Now, I'm just gonna come out here right away and say this wasn't my favorite episode so far of season 2 by a decent margin. I'm gonna explain exactly why later in the video. But what I want to talk about first here is Esil and everything she potentially stands for, so to speak, in this world of solo leveling. So finally, we meet the purple-haired, elf-like looking girl, this demon knight Esil, who is apparently part of a noble family, and she begs for forgiveness and mercy from Sung before he murders her mercilessly. And throughout the episode, we learn that, okay, clearly Esil, she is self-aware, she's sentient. She is every bit as human as humans are, more or less. We do also find a bit about where they come from and all of that, but that's going to be talked about a bit later when we get to the system. But yes, as I said, we get to really see that she is not just a monster. She is so much more. She is basically a human, or at least on the same, sentient level as a human. She is able to feel fear. She's able to feel many emotions, including, I guess, being shy and embarrassed and maybe into Sung romantically, ? Anyhow, outside of that, it's clear that Esil and her family, as you see with her father as well, and I assume a lot of other sort of nobles in this demon castle, 100 level grind that Sung is on, a lot of these are sentient. And that opens up a ton of very interesting, possibly complex questions about what is going to happen here or what's going on here. Because if some monsters, not all, but I assume at least the higher levels of monsters, like these demon nobles, etc., clearly are able to, form groups. They have family units, they have, familial attachments, they have the ability to feel complex emotion. They're able to negotiate, they're able to, they have sort of social hierarchies, right? These are complex beings with hopes and dreams and fears, just like humans, seemingly. Because of that, to me, that opens up a lot of potential moral questions of, okay, I don't think that hunters moving forward, if they sort of realize this and they find more monsters like this, can just go around murdering all monsters mercilessly, because that would, well, be murder, right? These aren't only antagonistic monsters that only try to kill you and whose only purpose is to destroy you or kill humans. Some of them might even not want to fight you at all. I don't necessarily expect that solo leveling is going to ever tackle, let's say, these more moral questions of, should we kill these monsters when they potentially aren't attacking us, they aren't aggressive, and we are invading their space, so to speak, right? If we ever get to a sort of setup like that. But to me, at least, it opens up a lot of questions of, yeah, okay, we have to think a bit about where we go from here on this, because to me, if hunters, especially Sung, just starts murdering, especially sort of self-aware, not necessarily antagonistic, like sentient beings, that's not going to reflect well on Sung or others doing that, at least not to me. But it is nonetheless very interesting, well, extremely interesting, how this all works and how these family units work, how the demon realm we get to know about works, and, well, of course, how the system ties into it all as well. Also have to very quickly mention here that I definitely had a bit of a laugh when Sung, with those serial killer eyes, asks Esil a question like, can I trust you? And it seems like she literally shits herself. Yep, you can trust me, totally. I would never betray you. Nope, no sir, don't kill me please. Esil also definitely seems to be a oddball character, as we get to see more throughout episode 8. Before we get into that though, do please remember to like and subscribe if you like my videos here and want to see more, especially on solo leveling. Deeply appreciate the support. Now, the biggest meat of this episode to me was the system. Was when Sung confronts Esil and tries to really get information out of her, like he tried to get out of Barco? I forget his name. The elf from episode 1. He really tries to push, right? To get information out of her, and as soon as he starts pushing, you see the system, again, sort of limiting him. But we do get the glimpse of information that, okay, so Esil and her family, and assumingly all the other nobles or high-ranking monsters here in this demon castle, or dungeon rather, didn't just exist here. They were brought here from the demon realm, assumingly by the system, and put here. They just randomly one day woke up here, and they had this command in their head to protect this area from invaders, to stand their ground, so to speak. And that's it. And we also get the glimpse of information that before Esil and their family woke up here. In the demon realm, they were preparing for war to face off against, an enemy so strong they had to try to unite the entirety of demonkind to face. I do wonder if that could have been Sung's dad, by the way, or potentially if it is Sung, because I don't really see any other sort of world-ending threats that demonkind was trying to unite to face, unless there is something else we don't know about yet that we're going to be slowly expositioned into over the course of this season and next season. But nonetheless, that does raise a ton of questions of like, okay, this is the first ever mention we get of these monsters, at least some monsters, assumingly the more elite, strong monsters, like Esil and whatever else, having a home world, or having like a home plane of existence, so to speak, having their own world, their own realm, and seemingly living, in peace, living in societies there, but then being randomly snatched, somehow by the system, and then put wherever the system wants to put them, with the Karlgan, or Tusk, as he is now named, from episode 5, whatnot, or episode 6, and now Esil and her family and everyone else here in the dungeon. It seems that the system randomly plucks monsters from God knows where, at least the demon realm, assumingly many other realms of monsters as well, with different levels of sentience, puts them wherever they want to, or whatever the system wants to, and is able to put commands into their heads to order them to do something. Like with Tusk, he was ordered to, hunt the humans, kill the humans, right? Like with the elven boss, having the command to hunt, kill humans. And with Esil, having to defend this territory against invaders. This makes me wonder about a lot of things, Does this mean the system is responsible for putting monsters into dungeons 100%? Or do some of these come to exist naturally? How does this work with the dungeon breaks? Like, is the system responsible for making these gates open? Or how in the world does that system work? And now with Esil, we clearly see that not all of these monsters forget where they are from. Not all of them are just spawned in. Some of them have, a life from before, or come from a world from before. And as we see with Esil, she clearly, at least to some extent, retains some of her sense of self. She has a personality, she has fear, she has complex emotion, and as we see at the end of the episode, she is able to support Sung, who, in violation of her own orders, is an invader, yet instead of fighting him, she actually helps him. With that level of potential self-control, how much control does the system actually have over the ones they transport? Apparently they're able to transport these beings, including demons apparently, from one realm to another, and they're able to implant orders into them, but they're not able to control them fully? Like, how far does the system's power reach? Like, what are they not able to control? Because clearly, as we see, it doesn't control Esil 100%. Yes, they step in when Esil is saying too much, as you get the error message, so to speak, that, too much information has been shared, and then she basically shuts down and faints. But she was still giving information. Is that some sort of inserted command by the system that if too much information is being revealed, an automatic code of sorts kicks in? Or is the system manually monitoring Sung and what's happening, and manually then intervening and stopping the flow of information when the system thinks Sung is learning too much too quickly? And if the system is manually intervening, why is it drip feeding information like this to Sung? What is the purpose of that? What is the system having planned? Or what sort of schemes does the system have for Sung moving forward? We also see the difference in contrast between Esil and Tusk. Because Tusk, well, he also had commands implanted in him, and he just willingly followed the commands. He didn't really seem to have much of a sense of self. He just followed the orders he had been given. I guess that doesn't necessarily mean he couldn't make choices for himself, but he more willingly just followed orders and didn't really seem to have that sort of sentience that Esil clearly has. So maybe that's just a difference in species, right? That he's not as complex of a living being as Esil and her demon kind. Or it indicates, differing levels of control that the system may have over certain kinds, right? And maybe if the type of monster they are trying to control is too sentient or too intelligent, they can't get as much control as they would like over them. But if they can't, then why would they even make use of them? I'm not quite sure. I could talk about this for forever, right? But just a ton of questions surrounding this makes for a lot of interesting thinking on my part, and I really want to delve more into this and try to understand how all these things work, because if the show doesn't start to nail down certain aspects of how this works, how the system works, and it keeps being really cryptic, it's going to quickly become very difficult and complex to try to understand how this entire thing works, right? In terms of the monsters and the dungeons and the gates and the system. And, having missed the system is fine. Having, a drip feed of information and exposition is fine. But I also would like to have some explanation at some point that makes it all make more sense, I can only hope. Anyway, it's also interesting because as an ending point, it's also interesting that, the boss that Song fights here at the end, the one at the top floor, clearly doesn't seem really sentient. Or if he is, he doesn't say anything, he just tries to kill Sung and everything around him. So does that mean that that demon was not sentient? Like, is Esil and her family a special kind of demon that is sentient? Is Esil herself a, special sort of unit, person, like being, that isn't as tightly controlled as she should be? I don't know. But again, a ton of questions I really would like to have answered in some way or form at some point, especially in terms of Esil consciously thinking, who should I side with? And in the end, again, breaking with her internalized order to help Sung. Hopefully, the rest of Season 2 will somewhat try to explain this more to us, and we'll get some more drip feed of information to make it make more sense. We will have to see though. With that being said, yes, of course, we are also going back to Jeju Island, finally. And no, it is not a nice chill retreat, but probably a giant hellhole, which we will experience, I assume, at the end of the season for a long, I assume, multi-episode boss fight, or big fight anyway. Now, as we saw, glimpses of last episode, one ant did make it across the ocean. Last episode, I thought it was the mainland, but no, it was just a Japanese island, or at least an island within Japanese jurisdiction, and one ant murdered an entire, island town, right? And the hunters there and all the civilians. We also find out that apparently one ant is equivalent to A rank, which makes these fuckers kind of strong. It eventually gets brought down, of course, but that, does, of course, raise the alarm bells, and it makes Chairman Go initialize the start of the plan for going back to Jeju for the 4th expedition, or raid rather, to finally put a stop to the monster infestation there once and for all. Because of course, once the ants learn to fly further, well then the mainland will be at risk and everything will be a shit show. Now this does set off a joint venture between the Japanese and Korean guilds. You do get to meet, interestingly enough, the leader of the biggest Japanese guild. Apparently they have 11 S ranks, which is pretty sick. That must be an uber powerful guild in that case. As they mentioned as well, apparently the second strongest in Asia. So, the big boys, so to speak. And they say that, they will use 10 of their S ranks, including the guild leader himself, to fight the ants on the island, while the Korean S ranks, and I assume any A ranks that end up being recruited, will take on the queen to stop the ants from being born moving forward. They do also mention in some exposition that apparently, the ants go after powerful beings or any source of power they feel, and that will get them to be drawn towards, well, S ranks, I suppose, very easily. But they also say that they know ants only live 1 year, so killing off the queen on the island will over time just eradicate, well, all the ants on the island, even if they can't kill them all when they go on the raid. But that makes me wonder, how in the world do you know they have a lifespan of 1 year? I mean, how does an autopsy reveal that they only live 1 year, unless you have other sources of information that indicate how long they live? I would like to know that, please, actually. But yes, anyhow, gonna have, this expeditionary force going to raid the Jeju Island again. We get to have some negotiations starting between the Japanese and Korean guilds, or, well, bosses, so to speak here. And of course, we also get to know from Choi when he talks to Cha that yes, all the S ranks have been summoned within Korea to be part of this raid, which includes Sung, as Cha herself remarks to herself, at least internally. I'm sure she is very eager to see him again. That also made me wonder, though, if someone can just say no to join. I mean, I suppose they can. I mean, no one can force them. And physically, no one can force them because they're uber strong. But I assume no one would really say no to that if you're an S rank and you're being summoned, because it is sort of like a public good thing. And saying no to it would be a very dick move, and probably be horrible for your public relations, I'm just gonna say. So I assume that basically all the S ranks in Korea will participate, or at least a lot of them. I mean, Korea has 10, right? Or at least we've been told that Sung is the 10th hunter to awaken, but I guess people like Go isn't going to participate, question mark? So I assume maybe only 5 or so S ranks will actually participate from the Korean side. Guess we'll have to see more on the specifics on that in the next few episodes. But anyhow, we do spend a decent amount of time this episode setting up for that raid and setting up for the, I would say, what's going to be the big sort of climactic battle for season 2. I assume this battle on Jeju Island will, first of all, of course, showcase Sung being stupid powerful and showcase to the world, including all these Japanese S-ranks, how powerful Sung is. He'll probably have to, save the Japanese at some point, I assume, or at least do something to, make himself known to be insanely powerful. And I assume he will also get some, narrative payoffs regarding his strength during this boss fight or this major Jeju Island raid fight. And I assume it will take course over at least 2 episodes, maybe even 3, with the start and end of it all. And I assume that will sort of be, like the episode sort of 10, 11, 12, or around that. And it will end on some sort of cliffhanger, I assume, before season 3. Of course, all this is just speculation, but that's my general feelings of where the rest of season 2 is going, at least for the ending of it. I did like this small moment as well, when we see Choi, we see his eyes, right? We see his expression clearly showing some bloodlust when he talks about, this joint operation on Jeju Island. And he also says that, I don't care how we do it, as long as everyone there, all the monsters, are killed. So clearly, as we know from season 1, Choi has some, PTSD, he has some emotional trauma and issues regarding Jeju Island and how badly it went last time they were there. And I assume a lot of regrets that Choi has about what happened there and how he survived, right? On that point as well, I do actually hope that they play on that a bit when they do the raid on Jeju Island. I do hope they sort of play on the fact that, Choi, who is usually this stand-up, calm, almost suave persona, always being in control, maybe once you get to Jeju Island, because of this trauma he had from last time, maybe that ends with him making more emotional choices, acting up, being more emotional in general, and maybe then in turn making mistakes that someone else, maybe even Sung, for example, has to come in and correct or fix, so things don't end up going to shit, basically. Of course, there's a ton of ways you can play that, but I do somewhat hope they maybe play on his trauma and use that for a narrative payoff during the raid on Jeju Island in some way or form. Well, we'll have to see what they do, if anything, but I can hope anyway, I assume next episode we will start to really build up that raid, and then we'll probably, not next episode, but the episode after, maybe start the raid in some way or form. Moving on though, I do want to make a quick mention of the Esil love triangle question mark I thought of during this episode, because it seems that Esil is, she's blushing. I mean she's a waifu incarnate, right? Just based on the looks. And she has a screw loose as well, apparently, as the Sung himself remarks. And she seems to be very into Sung in some way or form, since she is blushing, she wants to accompany him. And same as with Cha, she has this sort of fascination, for lack of a better word, with Sung. So I did just wonder, while watching the episode, of oh god, are they gonna make some sort of super weird love triangle happen here between Sung and Cha and Esil? Even though Sung probably has no interest in either, but both of them just vying for his attention or love or something over the course of the next seasons. Oh boy, that sounds absolutely horribly hilarious. But I guess we can only see if they do anything with that. I did like Sung also making the commentary of, I'm working well with Esil and Jinho. Maybe I just work well with people who have a screw loose. It's like, damn, Sung. Maybe you're right, but does Jinho have a screw loose? I guess. Okay, sure, if you say so. That, though, brings me to my final major point of this video, and that is the boss fight itself. Of course, the boss fight was like the ending point of the episode and sort of the climax of the episode, but to me, the boss fight didn't exactly feel great. There are multiple reasons for this, but most of all, or the most importantly of all, to me, personally, the boss fight didn't feel as sort of clean and precise and structured as prior boss fights. It felt a bit more disorienting. It felt more, not clumsy, but it felt less structured in the way of seeing what's going on. Multiple parts of the fight to me just felt a bit disoriented, where I couldn't clearly tell what was going on, and it took away from my enjoyment and the intensity of the fight and the inevitable conclusion. So I'm not sure if that was just how it was animated or how it was done in general, but it didn't feel as satisfying at all to me as some of the prior boss fights we saw, especially the boss fight with Tusk, which felt way more satisfying, at least to me personally. That also brought up another thought to me regarding one thing solo leveling I don't think has done the best job of so far, and that is clearly showcasing every skill Sung has. Because I don't feel like we know as viewers all the skills Sung has. I mean, maybe we do, and I'm just, dumb and forgetful, but I feel like many skills, yeah, we've seen Sung, of course, get the stealth skill, and we've seen him get certain skills during more, let's say, montage-esque scenes or big fights throughout season 1 and 2, but to me, it doesn't really feel like the anime has clearly showed us all the skills, one by one that he has at his disposal. Again, maybe I'm wrong, maybe they have, and we know exactly all the skills he has, but it feels to me like they might just throw in a skill there that we don't know about. For example, as with the battle with Tusk, right? Yeah, he then uses a brand new skill he got, we didn't know he had before that time, to boost his shadow army, right? And who's to say that the anime isn't going to later introduce another, new skill that he randomly got leveling off screen or doing something off screen to then win a fight. In that setting, I don't really like it because I want to know exactly what skills our MC has so that in turn I can judge how smart they are with structuring the fight and knowing that he is utilizing all the skills and abilities he has to the optimal he can to win a fight. I just like knowing, what he can do and can't do at any one time, so I know if he's being smart or dumb in regards to fighting, etc. And also just, of course, knowing his general power level as well. I do hope solo leveling does more with that moving forward, being just more detailed to showcase us the skills he has or any new skills he gains at the time he gains them. So we don't just get this sort of very tropey power fantasy shtick where they end up just inventing new skills he actually got off screen sometime we never heard about to actually win a fight, because to me that's very cheesy and dumb, and I don't like it at all. Not that I necessarily did that in this episode, I'm just saying in general. I hope they don't go into that route because I would be unsatisfied. As I mentioned before though, Esil in here ends up siding with Sung, throwing the, weapon she has, whatever you call that, to distract the boss long enough so Sung doesn't end up being, killed and then wins the fight. Which was okay, I guess. I mean, I would have been fine with him just winning on his own as well, but I mean, showing Esil helping out, I guess, is also acceptable. Clearly, at least using it as a showcase of Esil having the ability to decide what she does herself, having, that self-control, I suppose, and I suppose also cementing her as being more of a supporting cast moving forward in the anime, at least to an extent. One thing that did surprise me though was that right as Sung, is about to take on the boss and finish him with a one-hit KO, just while punching him basically until his head goes off, he says that he's putting all his stats into strength or whatnot. And that made me think, wait, what? Sung can reallocate his stat points at any time? Even while in combat? Really? I didn't know that. I mean, that's pretty strong. So I guess he can do that. Cool. I mean, I guess that means he can just randomly also put all his stats into mana or whatever that category is to have way more mana supplies, right? Maybe. I don't remember if we actually saw all the different potential stats he can increase or decrease, but if he can move around his stat points like that easily, that quickly, at the blink of an eye, that does open up a lot of potential routes in future combat where he can really just boost up one stat that he needs in one specific fight. So I do hope they actually remember that and actually make use of that moving forward as well, if it can actually be relevant in a fight, because that's a very useful tidbit of information, As a whole though, episode 8, yeah, it was okay. I didn't hate it, I did love it. The boss fight to me wasn't super satisfying. Probably one of the least satisfying boss fights we've had so far in the anime for me. It was okay. Esil, easily the most interesting part of the episode. Not necessarily because of her present personality or because of who she is, though that's entertaining in its own way, but because of what she represents for the anime moving forward. That to me was very interesting. And of course, again, the extra tidbit of information about the system, or what the grander scheme here might be that we get during the episode. Moving forward, as I mentioned earlier as well, I assume, the end of the season will focus on the Jeju raid. We will have at least 2 episodes all on that at the end of the season. But overall, so far being 8 out of 13 episodes, it's been overall good. I mean, I think season 2 definitely a step up from season 1. Enjoyed season 2 a lot, really, in most episodes. And while this one wasn't my favorite so far of season 2, I think it's still a very decent episode of anime, and multiple points of it I definitely did enjoy. And it was a good setup episode to start prepping for the Jeju raid to come soon, TM. And although with that being said, what did you think of episode 8 of season 2 of Solo Leveling? Leave all those thoughts down below. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, please remember to like and subscribe as it greatly helps out the channel. And if you want to be extra supportive, check out my Patreon in the link in the description below and join, become a member. Would hugely appreciate that support. With that being said, hope you have a good day, keep watching anime, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.